Welcome back to web development with AngularJS and Bootstrap. In the last video, we looked at adding an input onto the page, styling it with Bootstrap, and binding the data with AngularJS. In this video, we'll have a look at how to make sure the user inputs valid data and how to let them know when it's invalid. To start, let's decide how we want the inputs to look when they aren't correct. Again, to start, we'll have a look at the Bootstrap site. Open up the forms documentation and navigate down to validation states. If we scroll down a bit more and look at the icons options, we can see that this looks more obvious than just the default validation. Let's use this code here to make one input look like it's valid and the other like it's invalid. I'll walk through how to set up the valid input, then I'll get you to pause the video and try to do the invalid input yourself before continuing. I'm going to start by copying over all the content for the success input for reference. We'll just put our reference HTML here. Right. Now I'll start by adding the new class to the form group div, which is this here, has success, has feedback. Then we will change the label to have a class of control label. Finally, to add the span with the icon, which we'll just cut and paste from here after the input. Now if we switch back over to our preview screen again, we can see that it shows up as a valid with a check mark at the end. Now I'd like you to pause the video and have a go at setting up the password input to show us up as invalid. Okay, I assume you've at least had a go now. If you had trouble, I'll still go through setting up the invalid input as we did with the valid input. First of all, we scroll down here and we get the error one, so we copy across has error, has feedback. Copy across class for the control label. Then we'll go grab that icon and drop it in after. And there we go, it shows up as red with a little red cross here. So this is great, but not particularly useful or interactive. So now we'll use a couple of AngularJS directives, namely ngClass and ngShow. First, let's have a look at the docs for ngClass. Let's go back to our AngularJS docs and look up ngClass. So as you can see in this example here, we're going to be using the ngClass to dynamically apply and remove the classes around the inputs. To find the variables that we're going to inspect for our ngClass, we're going to have a look at the form directive here. As you can see here, we can reference the form input's valid or invalid, pristine or dirty state from the front end. You see this is an example form with a required field. So if it's valid, then my form.valid is true. If we delete it, then my form.$valid equals false. So if we switch back over to our code, first we'll need to assign a name to the form and a name to the email input to be able to reference it. So let's go ahead and do that now. We'll call the form input form, and then we'll edit our email one and name it email. Next we'll work with the email input, which has some inbuilt email validation already. First, let's cut out the has success default class, because we don't want it showing as successful all the time. Now we add in the ngClass attribute with the following code. As you can see, we've declared two classes in this ng class attribute. One is has success, and this is that has success will be applied if input form.email.dirty, i.e. input has been edited and the email is valid. On the other hand, it will apply the has error class if input has been edited and the email input is invalid. Alright, now if we switch back to our live preview and we start typing something into our email, it goes red, which means that it is invalid. Now if we make it a valid email address, it turns green. And you will also see that the checkbox is not quite right yet. So the next thing we'll do is change the ng, or add an ng class attribute on the icon. First of all, we're going to remove this glyph icon OK, and then we're going to do the same what we did for the ng class in the input, except instead of has success and has error, we're going to use glyph icon OK and glyph icon remove, which are the two that are being used currently. I'm just going to paste this in now. Here we go. And if we try the form again, we can see the checkbox changes. Now, the great thing about how this code is structured is that it then becomes very easy to use the same code to style the password input. Changing the name to password is necessary. Note that we need to add the required attribute to the password field for anything to show up, otherwise it will just show up as valid immediately. So let's go ahead and do that now. Grab the ng class off the span. I'm just going to close the preview. Copy it, then go down to the span for the password, remove the glyph icon, paste it in, change this to password. Right, then we'll copy the ng class for the form group. We mustn't forget to give our password field a name. Now let's flick back over to our live preview to see what's happened. As you can see, it's already showing up as red. This means we've forgotten to remove the has error class. Also, we need to make the field required. Now if we type something in, it goes green. If we remove it, it goes red. And as you can see, the icon is changing as well. So we've now seen how to add validation to the form to let the user know when they've put some incorrect information in. In the next video, we'll have a look at the ng model and how to debug validations.